What's going to happen? Are you going to see a new town developing somewhere? Are you going to see a new industry developing somewhere? Uzombona gijima up and down ngama Ferrari and young girls being pedophilic. Adagwa
Gotta make
that's why I'm a woman. No,
to make it rain.
No.
They need to see that I've arrived.
See that you have arrived.
Of course.
And then what? And there's a problem with us
make
black
it rain
people. So
on the honeys.
So if Penuel has arrived,
the Instagram girls are waiting.
and then what happens?
We have a good time.
Is it not prostitution?
South Africa's ruling class, the ANC looters in suits, the EFF racist messiahs in red berets, and the MK consultants of decay have sung their last chorus of struggle songs. And now the spotlight shifts, not to applause, but to judgment. The USA is about to strike the local gangsters, local South African gangsters, not with bullets, with bans, not with boots, with bank freezes, and not with speeches, with isolation and punishments, so severe it silences even the most arrogant microphone. HR 2633, the guillotine in a business suit. The United States-South Africa Bilateral Relations Review Act is no empty threat. It is a surgical tool of economic execution, wrapped in legality, but soaked in finality. And it's already being sharpened by Washington's finest. Ramaphosa knows it. Mashatile feels it. Malema pretends to laugh through it. Shivambu, Google escapes roots. Imbalula, Fikile's memes have dried up. Bekiteli is looking nervously at prison overalls. And the cadres at Luthuli House, once smug with loans from Iran and Russian vodka, are starting to realize no BRICS country will stop a dollar landslide. The US isn't planning to act, it's poised to act. And when Trump strikes, America will rip through ANC bank accounts, border entries, foreign assets, diplomatic protections, and every backdoor built by the ANC's corruption architects. The illusion is dead. The execution is personal. This isn't about policy, it's about punishment. The ANC has violated every principle the post-apartheid dream claimed to stand for, and now the world is turning on them, not because it suddenly grew a conscience, but because chaos is contagious. And no sane economy wants South Africa's virus in their bloodstream. For 31 years, these ANC men fed off slogans while draining the state. They preached unity while sharpening knives behind tribal lines, and they danced on the ruins of Rhodesia while mocking those who warned them, "You're next." Well, now is next. And what does the world say now? The United Nations, still issuing statements no one reads. BRICS, offering friendship bracelets and watching the US press detonate. What about China? Quietly backing away from a bad investment. They're hiding from the ANC. Too embarrassing. And Russia? Too busy choking in Ukraine to care. And what about Iran? Money to the ANC. They're beaten to a pulp and running scared. Nobody's coming to your rescue, ANC. No cavalry, no comrades, just silence. You're on your own. And the cold click of economic exile. And at last, the people know. The ones who really matter. The ordinary South Africans. The ones who've been betrayed daily by the ANC. They won't march in rage this time. They'll sip weak tea, eyes on the headlines, and say what they've been saying behind closed doors or at braais for years. Let the ANC burn. Let the ANC fail. Let the liars and gangsters drown in their own sewage. The people of this country have survived poverty, power cuts, empty taps, genocide incitement. They're not afraid of the collapse. They've lived in it for decades. And when the final stage of this reckoning rolls out, South Africans are not going to flinch because the fire is not theirs. It belongs to those who lit the fuse and called it freedom. They lied. The BEE, Black Enrichment Elite of the ANC. And yes, the names are going to be named. This isn't theoretical. The Magnitsky list of ready-made for the likes of Cyril Ramaphosa, Paul Mashatile, Julius Malema, Floyd Shivambu, Fikile Mbalula, Ace Magashule, the nasty Becky Tseli, the anti-Semitic Naledi Pandor. All of you are going down. And every dirty little consigliere who signed the checks, made the deals, and sold the soul of our nation for another imported SUV. They're not going to hide behind struggle credentials. They're not going to cite apartheid, and they will not escape in disguise. Because the world is not confused anymore. The world sees the ANC for what it is. Not a liberation movement, not a government, but a criminal syndicate. And when the ANC fail and when they fall, it won't be war, it's going to be sterilization. The luxury accounts, frozen. Your diplomatic visas, revoked. Your overseas property portfolios, seized. Your children in London and New York, disgraced. Your Swiss accounts, locked tighter than Fort Knox. You're going to return humbled and humiliated to the ruins that you've built in this country. And for once, you're going to be forced to live in the country you created, the mess you created. And then what? When the ash settles and the last speechwriter retires, our land's still going to be here. Our people are still going to be here. And from the ANC scorched earth, something better will rise. Not perfect, not pain-free, but clean. No more rainbow illusions, no more worshipping party over principle, Cyril. No more ties to revolutionaries who forgot how to build. This isn't collapse. This is a correction. No anthem, no foreign fund, no stage march will undo what's coming. The ANC is not being defeated. It is expiring from within.
News 24 runs a story this morning. The ANC's national operations are paralyzed. Ramaphosa goes to court to unfreeze party accounts. It seems we didn't hear much about the party's bank accounts being frozen when the sheriff of the court went to freeze and gather assets from the Thule House recently. ANC Treasurer General Gwen Ramaphosa said the freezing of the party's bank accounts had paralyzed its operations as it prepares to challenge the court ruling in a Gauteng High Court next week. Gee, I wonder what's going on here. The freezing of the ANC's bank accounts over alleged debt to Izolini Investments has thrown the ANC into financial and operational crisis, says News 24. But it's not alleged debt. There's no alleged. Multiple court rulings have said it's a legitimate debt and the ANC owes the money. And the sheriff of the High Court wouldn't have seized assets if it wasn't legitimate debt. Alleged debt. It's a debt. Oh my. So no money to win by-elections? No cash to buy T-shirts and KFC 3-piece Streetwise meals to hand out to voters? So you're telling me that the ANC can't buy voter sympathy now? This can't be good for the Thule House. Gwen Ramaphosa, the ANC's Treasurer General, argues that this is not just a financial issue, but an attack on the party's operational capacity, democratic role, and its credibility. Folks, only the African National Congress can welch on a debt, fail to pay its creditors despite court rulings against it, kick the ball down the road for 6 years, and then comically claim it's under attack. Never mind the ludicrous claim that the party has a democratic role. The only part of Ramaphosa's statement that is accurate is that the party lacks credibility. But contrary to her claims, it is not because the party is under attack. Rather, the ANC is a deadbeat client. No wonder the ANC is championing African debt relief. The Thule House doesn't even pay its own bills. They would love the concept of debt relief. It would certainly help them here. Now, News 24's Amanda Closer reports that the freezing of the ANC's bank accounts following a court decision related to its alleged debt to Izolini Investments has plunged the party into an unprecedented financial and operational crisis. Here we are again with that term, alleged. Now, I don't know if this is from the author, the journalist, Amanda, or it's her editors at News 24. But why are you saying alleged when the courts have multiple times said the debt is genuine? It's not alleged. That's like using quotes to describe refugees to America. They're not, quote, refugees. They're actual refugees. And it's an actual debt. So what exactly does this mean, folks? Will it cut into the ANC elite's privileged perks, or does it have a tangible impact that will hamper the party's attempt to lure voters with empty promises and race hustling? Now, faced with what it describes as an existential threat, the African National Congress is set to urgently challenge the court's ruling in the Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg on Tuesday, October 21st, 2025. Existential threat? Sounds a bit like hyperbole to me. I mean, the ANC is not going away. Its deep-pocketed white monopoly capital enablers will not let that happen. Gwen Ramakopa, as I mentioned, the ANC's Treasurer General, argues the situation is not just a financial dispute, but a direct attack on the party's operational capacity, its reputation, and its democratic responsibilities. I've already mentioned that. She mentioned it a couple of times. The ANC's entire national operation has been paralyzed by the freezing of its bank accounts. No! Oh my goodness, the ANC is paralyzed. Good. That's fantastic news for South Africans, no? Now, folks, little backdrop to this. Earlier this month, the sheriff of the court confiscated Luthuli House office furniture, computer equipment, and appliances valued at approximately 140,000 rand to help settle the remaining 85 million in debt the ANC owes to Izweni from services that it provided for the ANC's 2019 election campaign 6 years ago. In addition to the movable assets, the sheriff also froze the ANC's bank accounts, something that the media didn't highlight. The party cannot access funds in the accounts until the debt is recovered, and any funds that are in the accounts can be settled to use the debt. Wow. So why hasn't the ANC paid this debt? And why did the media breathlessly, in advance of the 2024 national elections, falsely report that this debt had been settled? Because Fikile Mbalula told them? Did they bother to do any further investigation? I mean, these are media houses. I mean, after all, News 24 gets 80 million hits. Oh, yeah, they're like the top news site in South Africa, part of a major media outlet, Media 24. And their Afrikaans sister network, Netwerk 24, gets 74 million hits. That's a lot of hits. They're the number one news source. And they're proud of their investigative journalism, as they should be in some cases, like the Babito Deokaran investigation in Tembisa Hospital. But why haven't they exposed this previously? Where was their investigative journalism with the people on the ground, the boots on the ground, the resources, the money, the access, the contacts to all the political parties, to the courts, to the police? Why weren't they asking this question and following up since December of 2023? Nearly 2 years ago. 22 months ago. For 22 months, we've been misled that the ANC paid their debt. And Izweni has not made a big stink about this publicly. They haven't been in the press writing op-eds and screaming that they've been denied the money that they're owed. So where has been this investigative journalism that News 24 is so proud of? And what of IOL, Daily Maverick? They have that Ambungani, that investigative process that they have. Where's the investigation here? Could it be because it's the ANC that will look bad? Because the ANC is the one who welched on the debt and these media houses are afraid, unwilling to report negative things about the ANC? Or are they complicit with the ANC? I don't know. What's the reason? Just conjecture and speculation. We don't know. But if they were true investigative journalists, they would have asked this question. I have no access to the court. I have no access to the politicians that they have access to. So I can't answer those questions. I can only ask them. And maybe somebody will step forward, a whistleblower. But here we are, nearly 2 years later, after the ANC supposedly paid this debt, which Fikile Mbalula apparently lied to the public about. I mean, he was the guy that told us. Maybe it wasn't Fikile. Who was it? Somebody in the ANC told us it was paid. And all the media breathlessly said the bill was paid. But no one, and I asked this question at the time, and no one's answered this question to this date. How did they pay for the 102 million rand that they owed, plus the 50 million rand in interest and penalties, plus 20 million rand spent for the birthday party at Umbumbela Stadium in Nelspruit, plus they had an election campaign. The money that is reported to the Independent Electoral Commission from the Batu Royal Trust and Chancellor House and a few others doesn't even come close to covering all those expenses. Not even a fraction of that. So why isn't the ANC reporting all the income that it receives? This is in violation of South African election law. Probably that's why Ramaphosa wanted to change the law, so the reporting thresholds were much higher, because the ANC obviously has received a lot of money that they haven't disclosed. It's simple math, folks. It's not rocket science. Anyway, according to News 24's Amanda Kosa, the ANC is in deep trouble. It can't access its bank accounts. So
we were nations here with kings and queens. Why did we have different kings and queens if we didn't have borders?
You don't just get into a kingdom, Jay.
You can't say there are no borders. Where? Even umuntu makasuke eSwatini angena ngala eSouth Africa. We had our own system of receiving.
Yes.
Abantu abangabona bethu. We would give them a piece of land and help them to, assimilate.
and likewise. But at that time, we respected one another. There was common respect. There's no common respect. We can't have people coming through our borders with drugs and arms and these gangs who steal children, human trafficking and prostitution. And basically right now what's happening is that I was told by a police officer that majority of the murders that are committed in South Africa are committed by foreign nationals and specifically Zimbabweans. I asked him, why don't you share this in public? Xenophobic. If it's a fact and you can prove it through the stats.
There's no xenophobia in stats and facts. I just want to add.
Try going to Zimbabwe without the
and in Zimbabwe, I've heard that they're very strict. Yeah, the prisons there are not.
Buzu Vavi. Remember when Vavi was sent back by Mkawe?
I just want to add.
He's my friend, Vavi, by the way.
I just want to add and shade that Njobu Kulum about kings and kingdoms, where you couldn't just get in. Political leaders who are preaching about removing borders live within spaces and estates where people can't just come in as and when. So if they are living like that, why would they allow a country to just remove borders when they themselves in their homes
why
and their estates don't want to do that? So it's silly for me.
If you believe in that kind of why are we all living in gated estates? Why do we have cameras in our houses? If it's okay for someone to just move into the country without being verified, without contributing to the productivity of the country, and also you can't. There's no country in the world that will allow millions and millions of people to come and take low-hanging fruit jobs from their own poor people.
Yes.
Umuntu goes to another country because I've got a scarce skill
that they don't have.
By the end of August 2025, over 1,035 businesses in South Africa has already shut their doors. Let that sink in. More than 1,000 companies gone, job losses, income gone, families struggling. So here's my question to you. When is it your company? When is it your job? Because if you think it won't happen to you, you have to think again. Yes? The economy is changing fast. And in South Africa, I don't have to tell you exactly what is happening. When will it be you? That's why I want to tell you, you need to have a plan B. Something that earns even if your main income doesn't.
I'm making it clear. The United States will boycott the Johannesburg summit. No delegation, no officials, not a single representative. Because we are not going to sit at a table with a government that refuses to deal with serious human rights concerns. For too long, these international clubs expected America to show up, smile, and pretend everything is fine. But not anymore. If a country wants the United States at its summit, it must respect basic freedoms, protect its people, and uphold the values that the world claims to defend. Some leaders are already complaining. They say America is being divisive. No, America is being honest. And honesty is what the world needs. By stepping back, we're sending a message. The United States will not endorse abuses, corruption, or political intimidation. We stand with people who want fairness, stability, and real democracy. And let me tell you, skipping one summit won't weaken America. It makes us stronger. Because when the U.S. takes a stand, the entire world feels it. America leads by principle, and this is just the beginning.
By incompetent thugs who are masquerading as government ministers, as members of parliament, as MECs, as MMCs, as public representatives, who are actually putting themselves on lists without even checking whether they are qualified to be on those lists. There are people in parliament who can read a balance sheet, who can read a management account statement from a government department, who don't know what a debit and a credit is, but they are MPs. We can't have that nonsense. We cannot be held hostage by an unaccountable government. This government is unaccountable. In fact, it's a mafia government. They can't go to a cabinet meeting and unilaterally decide to make us pay for things that we cannot afford.
Is that part of this whole summit? We did explain before that they play different roles. We know that there is a head who coordinated everything, and that person had paid the entire after the job, but he used his bank account to transfer money, and that's a business account that he used. But we are investigating further the linkages of his business account with other partners that he has who transfers money into the business account. And so we are identifying all those that he has a business interest with that will have moved money into that account, and we are busy looking at those to establish exactly who above him might have requested him perhaps to coordinate this operation. But until we have that evidence, which is, as I said, from the business account where the monies are moved, there's a lot of investigation work that needs to be done to prove that there is a relationship that might be corrupt, if there is any, with another party, and then we're able to move up the data if need be. But for now, we are comfortable that the main guy that assembled the team and executed the job, and the main guy who eventually paid the entire team and also paid himself, is amongst the 7 that you have stated. So beyond that, it is part of the investigation that you are doing. But as I say, it's more on the commercial side of things, to be able to look at the business account and anything related to the business account. Hopefully, we might find some other connectivity that might link into this case or any other cases. We know that the vehicles that have been used have been rented for other days other than this day where this incident happened. We're investigating that as well, where those vehicles might have been used when they were rented by the very same person, and see whether there's any incident that happened in those areas, and look at those dates. Also, what was the activities in the bank account during that period, and so that we can be able to see whether there's any other party, maybe that is financing this guy, as he called himself a businessman. That business account of his is an account of interest for us as we investigate.
Capture of any form of court or criminal justice system. He never mentioned cartels, never mentioned the Big Five, so-called Big Five. The only name that he did mention was Brown Mogotsi. Okay. And at that moment, the minister was also present. The minister denied that allegation in a very peaceful way. You'd remember the clip, right? Yeah. The minister was like, "Yeah, we're not acquaintances, associates." Yeah. You know, the whole associate definition discussion that there was. So there was no reason, and no one challenged the minister on that. General Masemola himself, as the National Commissioner, as he conceded during his testimony at the ad hoc committee, also didn't counter anything of it. Not Masemola Mkhwanazi or General Khumalo, the Divisional Commissioner of Crime Intelligence, for any moment said that they were against the closing of the PKTT. In fact, when we asked the National Commissioner, he conceded that, and he said that they expected us to read between the lines. That's a very dangerous statement to make, especially with politicians. And I include myself for that. We need to be factual. We can't do oversight by reading between the lines. So I think he did have trust in it. I think if he had started speaking about cartels and judges and courts being captured, the seriousness of it would have been taken far.
An official ally and historically one of the closest partners of the United States has suddenly found itself under China's close attention. And this is not just rumor. According to several insider reports and publications from reputable outlets, Beijing is actively investing in Britain's critical infrastructure, expanding its economic and political influence, while Washington is realizing it is losing control of the situation. First, about investments. The Independent recently published an investigation into which Chinese corporate assets are already operating in the United Kingdom, from universities and research centers to critical infrastructure. Analysts note that Chinese investments in key British industries are becoming unstoppable. Among the alarming signs is the growing Chinese participation in projects that have traditionally been considered strategically important for the state. Moreover, sources inside the British Parliament report a sharp increase in the number of Chinese lobbyists and consultants closely linked to large investment flows from China. According to one former parliamentary advisor, meetings with representatives of Chinese funds now take place almost daily, and they come with a clear geopolitical message. Britain must become the platform for integrating the Chinese economy into Europe. These claims have not yet been officially confirmed but reflect a growing trend. Against this background, an uneasy picture is forming. Britain, once a loyal ally of the United States, is gradually diverging and directing parts of its attention and resources toward China. Britain was the first partner country with which Trump signed a trade agreement, receiving the lowest tariffs. Yet even that privilege did not prevent London from drawing closer to China economically. According to insider sources, Britain is considering the possibility of partially switching its trade settlements to yuan, an extremely rare and symbolically powerful move that analysts describe as a challenge to the global dollar system. British officials explain it simply: we need to simplify transactions with China, but experts see it differently. When America's closest ally chooses the currency of its rival, it is not just convenience, it is a signal. Reports from international financial forums note that China is increasing its influence not only through direct investments, but also through financial instruments and lobbying across Europe. Today, Britain is turning, according to one respected business journal, into the European bridgehead of China's global strategy. And the issue is not only economic, it is about security, influence, and control. Meanwhile, Washington appears disoriented. Despite loud declarations from the Trump administration about restoring American influence, Britain has become a particular point of concern for the Pentagon and U.S. intelligence agencies. Internal reports leaking from closed briefings emphasize that if China manages to deepen its presence in British infrastructure, it would undermine the United States' ability to use Britain as a platform for military response and economic pressure. And another key element is infrastructure itself. Britain is opening its doors to Chinese capital in areas long considered sensitive: telecommunications, energy, and transport. Although the British government officially calls for caution, and some members of parliament demand a review of Chinese investments in infrastructure, in practice, the pace of Chinese involvement continues to accelerate. One report notes that this is no longer about buying and selling, but about long-term partnerships and even participation in management. What does this mean for the United States? It means that an ally Washington has always relied on is beginning to act increasingly autonomously, and even in ways that run counter to U.S. interests. The very fact that Britain is considering settlements in yuan is equivalent to a quiet rejection of the dollar as the sole currency of global influence. This means China is gaining strength and doing so quietly, but systematically. The United States, meanwhile, is showing weakness. Its rhetoric is loud, but its real actions are limited, and when geopolitical rivals detect vulnerability, they exploit it aggressively. It must be noted that this is not just an economic game, it is a political and strategic one, in which Britain has become a bridgehead for change. If today investments are being accepted, lobbying is intensifying, and settlements are shifting, then tomorrow may come a moment when Britain will no longer be seen as America's British shield, but as part of a new Chinese economic architecture. Reputable publications are already warning that the inflow of Chinese investments into British infrastructure could have consequences for national security and sovereignty. Insiders claim that Chinese companies are already negotiating control over several key points in Britain's energy and telecommunications sectors. Officially, this has not yet been confirmed, but the fact remains: Britain is not initiating any strict protection of its strategic industries, and the United States is forced to watch as one of its most reliable partners drifts toward its rival without serious resistance. And here comes the culmination. When America's closest ally begins to act outside the US orbit and China's influence simultaneously grows, it sends a signal to everyone: Washington should be responding. But while American diplomacy and military strategy remain static, China is gaining an open window of opportunity. access to infrastructure, yuan-based settlements, growing influence in Britain, and consequently, in Europe. All this erodes part of America's room for maneuver and makes Washington less effective in its global strategy. In conclusion, Britain, once seen as the firm guardian of Western interests, is now becoming a platform for change. China is expanding its position not through war or brute force.
Reportedly in talks to join the BRICS alliance, the global power bloc led by China, Russia, India, Brazil and South Africa. If true, this could mark one of the biggest geopolitical shifts of our time. A founding member of NATO, a core pillar of the Western world, now exploring ties with the very nations challenging US dominance. The West is stunned, Washington is silent, and the world watches as Europe's second largest power begins to drift east. For years, Macron has spoken of strategic autonomy, Europe standing on its own, free from American control. Now that idea might be turning into action. If France joins BRICS, it won't just be another alliance shift, it would be a symbolic rebellion against the decades-long Western order. Imagine this, a nuclear power, a UN Secretary Council member, and one of the largest economies in Europe is standing shoulder to shoulder with Russia and China. The balance of power would tilt overnight. NATO would face an identity crisis, the European Union would tremble, and the message to the world would be clear: the edge of Western supremacy is fading. A new era is riding, led not by Washington or Brussels, but by a coalition of nations rewriting the rules of global power. France's move could be the spark that sets off the great realignment of the 21st century. The question now is, who is next to turn east?
Lowered interest rates because banks literally don't have money to lend. See, they're tightening their books, cutting credit, and that's why you're seeing all these layoffs everywhere. It's not because of AI. It's because companies can't get loans anymore. And that's what happens right before a depression. We're not heading for a recession. We're heading for a full-blown depression. Mark my words. And here's the kicker. Banks have less cash because people are quite honestly broke. Deposits have been falling for years. Families drain their savings just to buy groceries. Corporations pulled their cash out to buy back their own stock or move it into higher yield funds. So even if interest rates drop, which they have, there's literally nothing left to lend. And Donald Trump, he's only made it worse. He caused inflation with tariffs. He's collapsing healthcare so millions are choosing between food, rent, and medicine. And he's driven out millions of immigrants who, whether you like it or not, were customers. They bought food, clothes, cars, and kept money moving. And now that velocity is just gone. Meanwhile, the stock market looks great, but it's all fake. Big companies have been buying back their own stock, shrinking supply so that it makes their prices higher. AI companies are built on hype and not results, and investors are just parking money there because there's nowhere else to go. In 2008, though, we had tools to stop this kind of crash. We could cut rates, print money, and rebuild. But now, those tools are gone. Rates are already low, the debt is massive, and banks have less cash than they did before COVID. That's stagflation. Prices rising, jobs vanishing, money drying up. And when stagflation hits a broke middle class, it doesn't end in a soft landing. It ends in a depression. So don't let them tell you that this is normal, because it's not. It's deliberate. They're crashing the system so they can rebuild it in their image. And this time, sadly to say, there is no parachute for us.
You've heard that expression.
Yeah.
They said the world will end someday in the Middle East. We're not going to let that happen. Okay?
Well, listen, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. President. I really appreciate it. Guys.
The Middle East is rapidly changing. You know, there are prophets that say the world will come to an end in the Middle East. You know that, right? And we have weapons today that are so scary. When you look, I rebuilt them all. And when you look at the weapons we have today, the biggest threat we have in the world today is nuclear weapons.
600
The biometric entry-exit visa tracking system, which we need desperately.
This system is in place, and I will tell you, it will be on land, it will be on sea, it will be in air. We will have a proper tracking.
Right now, talk of a quantum financial system, QFS, remains mostly speculative and tied to fringe theories, but where there is smoke, there is fire. Meanwhile, BRICS is driving a real financial shift. Its members are trading more in their own currencies, building swift alternatives, and pushing to reform global institutions like the IMF. The BRICS New Development Bank and the contingent reserve arrangement could weaken reliance on the US dollar, yet a single BRICS currency still faces major challenges. South Africa is changing rapidly, and so is the world. What is really happening, and should we be afraid of what's coming? People say change is for the better, but is it really? I believe change in the political environment is good, but is this the Antichrist system? Hope not. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe. It helps my channel and it's free. See you at the next one.